For me, when the hydraulic brake failed, I had maybe 3 seconds to dive behind a concrete pillar before 4,000 pounds of steel and machinery crashed into the warehouse wall where I'd been standing. The impact sent equipment flying, and a piece of metal scaffolding caught me across the shoulder and ribs as I rolled away. That's how I ended up in Metro General Hospital, with a crushed shoulder, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion that made the room spin every time I moved my head too fast. The notification buzzed against my palm 3 days later, vibrating weakly through the hospital blanket. I thought it was another update from my doctor, maybe a reminder about my next round of antibiotics. Instead, I saw the words that carved straight through the morphine haze: "Your employment with Phoenix Industrial Solutions has been terminated, effective immediately. HR will contact you regarding final paperwork. Do not return to company premises. No greeting, no explanation, no humanity whatsoever." My name is Oliver Hayes, 47 years old, Director of Supply Chain Operations at Phoenix Industrial Solutions, and I was reading my termination email while lying in a hospital bed, barely able to lift my arm without wincing. I blinked twice, wondering if the pain medication was making me hallucinate, but the email stayed cold, digital, final. My hands shook, not from the pain meds, but from pure disbelief. 12 years of rebuilding that company's crumbling logistics network, gone in one lazy email from CEO Wesley Kane, a man who once told me, "You're the backbone of this operation." Hayes, apparently not backbone enough to deserve basic human decency. Across the room, another patient let out a low, knowing exhale. I hadn't paid him much attention since he was wheeled in an hour earlier. Pale from surgery, but alert, he tilted his head toward me. "Rough news?" he asked, voice steady despite the IV line taped to his hand. I swallowed hard, just got fired from my hospital bed. He raised an eyebrow. "That's impressive in the worst possible way." I turned my phone so he could see the email. His eyes scanned it once, then they sharpened, not with pity, but with recognition. "I know that tone," he murmured. "Wesley Kane?" My breath caught. "How do you know Wesley?" He gave a quiet, knowing smile. "I'm Richard Stone." The name hit me like that forklift should have. Richard Stone, CEO of Stone Logistics Group, Phoenix Industrial's largest competitor. The man Wesley dreaded running into at every industry summit. And here he was in the bed next to mine, staring at the email that ended my career. For the first time since I'd woken up in this ward, my anger shifted into something colder, sharper, more focused. Wesley hadn't simply fired me. He had handed me directly to the one man he feared most. Richard leaned back against his pillow, eyes still on me. "Oliver," he said softly, "it seems your company has made a very expensive mistake. How are you feeling right now?" The next morning, sunlight pressed weakly through the thin hospital curtains. My body still protested every movement, but my mind was clearer than it had been in days. I stared at the phone on my tray table, at the email that had blown up my life, and felt something inside me click into place. I wasn't broken. I was done being loyal to the wrong people. Across the room, Richard Stone was already awake, propped against his pillows like the hospital bed was just another conference room chair. A pen rested in his hand, tapping rhythmically against a notebook balanced on his lap. "You didn't sleep," he observed without looking up. "Not much." He finally lifted his gaze. "Your mind's working overtime." "Good. That means you're not defeated." I let out a small breath. Defeat would have been easier than whatever this is. "It's called transition," he said quietly, "often the most painful step before growth." Coming from anyone else, it would have sounded like motivational garbage, but from him, a man Wesley had feared for a decade, it landed differently. Real. Grounded. He nodded toward my phone. "Do you know how many major contracts you personally managed at Phoenix?" The question hit harder than I expected. I swallowed. 6 major accounts, about 12 smaller ones, around $30 million a year in business. His eyebrows lifted a fraction. "And those clients, they trusted you, not your CEO." Images flashed through my mind, frantic midnight calls during system failures, plant managers telling me I was the only person who understood their supply chains, teams asking for me by name even when Wesley wanted someone else involved. "Yes," I said. "They trusted me." He closed his notebook with a soft thud. "Then Wesley didn't fire you, Oliver. He fired the foundation holding his company together." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The truth was brutal in its simplicity. Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'll be direct. At Stone Logistics, we've been trying to break into Phoenix's client ecosystem for years. But strategy alone isn't enough. We needed someone who understands the operations, the people, the pain points, someone those clients already trust. My pulse quickened despite myself. Are you saying? I'm saying, he interrupted gently, that if you walk through Stone's doors, you won't be starting over, you'll be leading. Without a ceiling shoved above your head by insecure leadership. The words settled over me like warmth, terrifying, liberating, impossible. Richard, I whispered, Wesley will come after me. He'll claim non-compete violations. He'll threaten lawsuits. His expression didn't flicker. Let him. You were fired without cause while hospitalized. Courts don't enforce non-competes in cases like that. And Wesley Kane has always been louder than he is capable. I almost laughed because it was true. Then a nurse drifted in, checking our vitals, breaking the tension. But the decision forming inside me didn't dissolve. When she left, Richard spoke again, softer this time. Oliver, you're standing at a door that only opens once. And for the first time since the accident, I believed I might actually walk through it. By the time I was discharged 2 days later, the winter air outside felt sharper, cleaner, like it was carving away the last fragments of shock clinging to me. My shoulder ached with every breath, but my mind was steadier than it had been in years. Richard had been discharged the morning before, leaving me with a short message scribbled on the back of a hospital form. Opportunities fade faster than pain. Don't wait too long. R.S. I kept that note tucked inside my jacket pocket as my wife Sarah drove me home from the hospital. She tried to talk about my injuries, about resting, about taking time to heal. But my thoughts kept drifting back to Phoenix, to Wesley, to the email that had sliced my loyalty clean in half. You're not listening to me, Sarah said as we pulled into our driveway. I'm sorry, my head's just spinning. I get it. She put the car in park and turned to me. What are you thinking about? I looked at our house, the house I'd been paying for with Phoenix money for 12 years, the house where our daughter Emma had grown up, the house that represented everything I'd worked to build. I'm thinking about what comes next, I said. That night, unable to sleep, I opened my laptop. My body begged for rest, but my mind refused it. I pulled up every public document, every quarterly report, every press statement from Phoenix over the past 3 years. I wasn't searching for ammunition. I was searching for clarity, a map of where things stood and what had been quietly unraveling beneath Wesley's leadership. And what I found didn't surprise me, but it confirmed my worst suspicions. Revenue fluctuations hidden behind vague footnotes. Client retention rates quietly dropping every quarter. New hires placed strategically around Wesley's inner circle rather than where the company needed them. But there was something else, something that made my blood run cold: financial irregularities. Equipment purchases that didn't match inventory records. Maintenance contracts with companies that barely existed. The warehouse accident that had nearly killed me caused by equipment that should have been replaced months ago, equipment whose replacement funds had been quietly redirected elsewhere. Wesley wasn't just incompetent. He was corrupt, and I had the documentation to prove it. The next morning, with a cup of lukewarm coffee in hand, I dialed the number from Richard's business card. My heart hammered harder than it had during the accident. Stone Logistics, this is Nicole speaking. I cleared my throat. This is Oliver Hayes. Richard told me to call. A pause, then a shift in her tone, warm and purposeful. He's been expecting you. Can you come in Monday? My ribs throbbed, my head hummed, but something deeper, something fierce rose to the surface. Yes, I said. I'll be there. Monday arrived faster than my body would have liked. Each step from the car to the revolving doors of Stone Logistics headquarters sent a dull ache through my shoulder, but I refused to let it slow me. The building was impressive, modern steel and glass, but not flashy, the kind of architecture that spoke confidence rather than arrogance. A stark contrast to Phoenix's aging facilities, which always felt one budget cut away from falling apart. Inside, the lobby hummed with purposeful energy. No frantic scrambling, no disorganized chaos. Just steady, focused professionals who seemed to understand exactly where they fit. Nicole, a woman with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor, approached me. You must be Oliver. Richard's waiting for you. She guided me through a corridor lined with glass conference rooms, each filled with teams deep in productive discussion, not shouting matches, actual collaboration. When we reached the corner office, Nicole knocked once. Come in, Richard's voice called. He stood by the window when I entered, hands in his pockets, city skyline stretching behind him. He turned, and for a moment the CEO disappeared, replaced by the man from the hospital bed. "Oliver," he greeted warmly. "I was hoping you'd say yes." I managed a small smile. Wasn't sure I'd be able to make it. My shoulder has a mind of its own right now. "Sit." He motioned toward the chair across from his desk. Pain can wait, opportunity can't. As soon as I sat, he slid a slim folder toward me. Inside were documents, not contracts yet, but outlines, ideas, vision. Plans for integrating new operational strategies into Stone's infrastructure. "This," he said, "is what I believe you can build here." I stared at the pages. They weren't job responsibilities. They were blueprints. Blueprints for authority, autonomy, innovation. Things Phoenix had spent years pretending I didn't deserve. "You saw all of this from one conversation?" I asked quietly. "I saw it from 12 years of your reputation," he corrected. Phoenix talked about loyalty. What they never grasped was that your clients stayed because they trusted you, not the company. The words hit deeper than I expected. He sat across from me. "I'm not offering you a role out of sympathy. I'm offering it because Stone has a gap only you can fill." My breath steadied. For the first time in years, I felt like I was choosing something, not just surviving it. "This feels like something I'm building, not something I'm escaping," I said. A slow smile crossed his face. "Then let's build it together." For the next few days, I tried to follow doctor's orders and rest. But my mind kept returning to that folder, to the quiet promise woven between those pages. Build something that belongs to you. By Wednesday evening, I was finally able to move around without grimacing. The pain was still there, but so was momentum. So I did something I hadn't done since the hospital. I opened my email. Hundreds of unread messages, dozens from clients, and then the one name I'd been expecting. Wesley Kane. The subject line was ice cold. Clarification needed regarding client communications. I clicked it open with steady hands. "It has come to my attention that several clients have attempted to reach you. You are reminded that you are no longer an employee of Phoenix Industrial. Please refrain from responding to avoid violating separation terms. No warmth, no apology, not even acknowledgement of the timing. Just the same arrogance he'd always wielded. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened another email. One from Miller Manufacturing, a client I'd shepherded through 2 major expansions. "We heard about your medical leave. Could you confirm when you'll be available again? We prefer not to transition our account without speaking to you first." My pulse flickered, not with fear but with realization. Phoenix was trying to replace me, but clients weren't just accepting it. They were asking for me specifically. I closed the laptop and exhaled slowly. I wasn't powerless, I wasn't forgotten, I wasn't replaceable. The next morning, I met Richard again, this time in a smaller conference room. He greeted me with a quiet nod, sliding a cup of coffee toward me. "You look steadier," he said. "I feel steadier. Good. Because there's something we need to discuss." He tapped a file on the table. "Phoenix is making moves. Fast ones. They've reassigned your entire portfolio to Wesley's nephew, Brady. Of course they had." Brady barely understood basic logistics, let alone the complex relationships I'd built over 12 years. Richard folded his hands. "I don't want to push you, but clients reaching out directly, that's not something we can ignore." I met his gaze, clear and strengthening. "This isn't about revenge." "No," he agreed. "It's about integrity. And the direction you choose now will define everything that follows." In that moment, with the hum of Stone's operations vibrating faintly through the walls, I knew Phoenix was no longer my future. My path was already pulling me somewhere else. By Friday morning, tension surrounding Phoenix had begun to leak into the industry. I felt it in every message that came through. Not dramatic, just tentative. Curious. Clients sensed instability long before the public did. When I stepped into Stone's office for our scheduled meeting, focused urgency pulsed through the halls. Something was shifting. Richard was already in the conference room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He looked like a man preparing for an important operation. "We received 4 inquiries this morning," he said before I even sat down. "Clients asking directly whether you're available for consultation." My breath caught. 4? He nodded. "All from companies in your old portfolio." I sank into the chair. "Wesley won't handle this well." "He already isn't," Richard replied, sliding a tablet toward me. On the screen was an internal memo from Phoenix that someone had anonymously forwarded. "Effective immediately. All inquiries regarding supply chain operations are to be redirected to Brady Kane. Do not disclose personnel transitions unless instructed. Brady as operations director. The disaster was writing itself. There's more, Richard said quietly. Stone was contacted by a federal compliance coordinator this morning. My head snapped up. Routine, he assured me. But they asked whether we anticipated sudden client migrations. They've received whispers that Phoenix is restructuring aggressively. A hollow ache spread in my chest. I had spent 12 years stabilizing that division. One impulsive decision from Wesley had undone everything. This is spiraling, I whispered. It is, Richard said. And you're at the center whether you like it or not. He leaned back, studying me. Oliver, if these clients move, it won't just be a transition. It will expose everything Wesley has been hiding. My pulse thudded against my healing ribs. I didn't want this. I know, he replied. But responsibility doesn't care what we want. You didn't ask for leverage, but you have it. Silence settled between us, heavy but clarifying. Finally, Richard spoke again. You ready to talk next steps? I exhaled slowly, the decision crystallizing. Yes, I think it's time. That weekend, emails pinged in steady intervals. Each one another sign that Phoenix's carefully painted surface was cracking. A few came from former colleagues, written in cautious tones. But the ones that mattered came from clients. Polite, direct, uneasy. We've been reassigned to someone unfamiliar. Can you confirm your status? Our project timeline has stalled. Are you consulting independently? We'd like to understand the transition plan. I read each message twice, feeling their weight. These weren't opportunistic inquiries. These were warnings that Phoenix was wobbling without someone they trusted. Sunday afternoon, I met with Richard at a quiet cafe near Stone's campus. He arrived without fanfare, just a folder under one arm, and an expression that told me he already knew what I was thinking. You've seen the messages, he said. As soon as we sat, I nodded. They're not asking about Phoenix, they're asking about me. That's why we need to be deliberate, he said, setting the folder between us. Clients reaching out is one thing. Responding too quickly gives Wesley ammunition. But ignoring them sends the wrong message. I exhaled slowly. So what do you suggest? He opened the folder. Inside were drafts, communication plans, legal protocols, transition frameworks, everything structured, careful, precise. We create clarity, he said. No promises, no contracts. Just a professional update that you're exploring new opportunities. I stared at him. Phoenix will panic. That's the point, he replied calmly. Panic exposes truth. That evening, one more email arrived from Delta Manufacturing, one of the oldest accounts in my portfolio. We were informed that your health condition prevents further collaboration. Please confirm if this is accurate. We prefer not to transition unless necessary. My fingers tightened around my phone. Wesley wasn't just replacing me. He was rewriting the narrative. Sickness, incapacity, silence, a convenient story to mask the truth. Monday morning, I stepped into Stone's lobby with my decision already solid. This wasn't about choosing sides anymore. No, Richard agreed when I told him, this is about choosing your voice. For the first time since the hospital, I felt ready to use it. By Tuesday morning, the industry current had shifted from whispers to steady rumbling. I could feel it in the elevator ride to Stone's 15th floor, the subtle energy when doors opened, the focused conversations, the quiet urgency that appeared when something significant was unfolding. Richard met me outside the conference room, a tablet under his arm. Phoenix issued a statement an hour ago, he said, leading me inside. My stomach tightened about me. He slid the tablet across the table. The announcement was short. Due to unforeseen circumstances, our supply chain operations will undergo temporary restructuring. All inquiries will be redirected to Director Brady Kane. No mention of my firing, no mention of my absence, just a sterile attempt to plug widening cracks. They're pretending nothing happened, I murmured, because acknowledging it means acknowledging their mistake. Richard opened another document. Oliver, you need to see this. Emails forwarded anonymously from inside Phoenix. Teams scrambling to respond to client questions. Confusion about who was authorized to approve changes. Requests piling up unanswered. Senior staff questioning why they weren't informed of my termination. And then one line that made my blood run cold. If clients insist on speaking with him, tell them he is currently incapacitated and unavailable for future projects. My hands trembled, not from injury but from sheer audacity. They're framing you as unable to continue, Richard said softly. They want to close the door before anyone realizes you didn't close it yourself. That wasn't incompetence. That was character assassination. What do you want me to say? I asked. The truth, Richard replied. Not an attack, not an accusation, just clarity. Clients need to know you're not bedridden or silenced. I inhaled deeply. For the first time, the choice didn't scare me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the part of my life Wesley tried to erase. Then let's tell them, I said. By Wednesday morning, my professional update was ready. Simple, clear. After completing medical treatment, I'm evaluating new professional opportunities. I remain committed to supporting organizations that value stability, transparency, and partnership. No attack, no drama, just truth. Minutes later, the message went live on LinkedIn. The reaction was instant. Notifications exploded. Likes, comments, private messages. Then direct emails from clients, industry partners, people inside Phoenix. The first email came from Delta Manufacturing. We're glad to hear you're recovering. We suspected Phoenix wasn't telling us the full story. Then Miller Manufacturing. We paused all new requests until we could confirm your status. Please let us know where you land. And then a third message that made my breath catch. I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened to you. Sent anonymously from a Phoenix address. Someone inside was watching this unfold. Someone who knew Wesley's narrative was collapsing. By noon, the situation escalated. Nicole hurried into the conference room where Richard and I were reviewing transition plans. There's something you both need to see, she said, setting a printed report on the table. A summary of Phoenix's emergency investor call leaked within hours of ending. And there it was. Client retention risk elevated. Operational continuity unresolved. Leadership stability under review. Beneath those lines, key personnel departure continues to impact multiple accounts. Richard met my eyes. That key personnel is you. Heavy silence settled between us. This isn't a crack, he said quietly. It's the beginning of internal collapse. My chest tightened, not in fear, but recognition. Phoenix hadn't simply lost me. They'd lost the foundation that held their entire operations network together. I closed the report, my decision settling like steel. Richard, if Phoenix is falling apart, we need to be ready. He nodded. Oh, we will be. That evening, my phone buzzed with an anonymous message. They're collapsing. You should see this. Screenshots from Phoenix's internal channels followed unauthorized system changes under Brady's credentials. Client issues hidden in doctored reports. Wesley's panic directives scattered across midnight timestamps. This wasn't mismanagement anymore. It was quiet implosion. I sent everything to Richard. He called instantly. Phoenix's board is meeting right now, he said. Someone leaked the audit results. My chest tightened. They'll blame me. They'll try, he said. Because it's easier than admitting the truth. The moment you were gone, everything they buried started surfacing. Minutes later, more messages arrived. From a former colleague, Wesley stormed out, security took his badge. Another, Brady resigned, total chaos. I sank back in my chair, not triumphant, just finally free of the weight I'd been carrying since that hospital bed. Richard appeared moments later, calmer now, as if he understood what this ending meant. You didn't cause their collapse, Oliver, he said. Wesley did. You simply stopped holding the pieces together for him. I looked out at the city, bright, steady, open with possibility. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like survival. It felt like opportunity. Then this, I said quietly, is my clean break. Richard nodded. And your beginning? The next morning brought news that spread through the industry like wildfire. Phoenix Industrial Solutions was under federal investigation for financial irregularities and equipment safety violations. Wesley Kane had been arrested. The company's stock plummeted 40% before trading was suspended. I sat in Stone's conference room, watching the news unfold on multiple screens. Richard entered with coffee and a satisfied expression. The FBI wants to interview you, he said, setting a cup in front of me. Seems your documentation about the equipment maintenance was exactly what they needed. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Emma saw the news. She's proud of you for doing the right thing. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Richard sat across from me. So, about that offer, I'm listening. He slid a contract across the table. Director of Strategic Operations. Full autonomy over your division. 30% salary increase and equity participation. I scanned the numbers. More than I'd ever made at Phoenix, with the respect I'd never received. There's one condition, Richard said. I looked up. We're announcing a new ethics compliance program. I want you to head it, Make sure Stone never becomes what Phoenix was. I thought about the forklift accident, the cover-up, the lies, about 12 years of loyalty rewarded with a cold email, about the clients who trusted me more than they trusted a company. Deal, I said, extending my hand. Richard shook it. Welcome to Stone Logistics, Oliver. For real this time. 6 months later, I stood in my new office, corner suite. Windows overlooking the city. My name on the door. Stone Logistics had acquired 3 major contracts from Phoenix's collapse. The ethics program I developed was being studied by other companies as a model. My phone rang. It was Emma, calling from her college dorm. Dad, I saw the article about Stone in Industry Weekly. They called you a transformational leader. I laughed. They're being generous. No, they're not. You know what Mom told me? She said Phoenix didn't just fire you. They freed you to become who you were meant to be. After hanging up, I walked to my window. Below, Stone's employees headed home for the day. Good people doing honest work for fair pay. No cutting corners, no buried scandals, no midnight cover-ups. My computer chimed with a new email. The sender made me pause. Brady Kane. Mr. Hayes, I wanted to apologize for how things went at Phoenix. I was in over my head from day one. You deserved better. I'm starting fresh at a smaller company now, and I'm trying to do things the right way. Thank you for the example you set. Brady, I stared at the message for a long time. Wesley had corrupted more than just financial records. He'd poisoned an entire company culture. But people like Brady still had a chance to learn, to grow, to choose integrity. I typed back, Brady, everyone deserves a second chance to do the right thing. If you ever need guidance, my door is open. Oliver, the sun was setting over the city. My shoulder barely ached anymore. The ribs had healed completely. But the real healing had been deeper, the restoration of purpose, the return of self-respect. My desk drawer held a framed photo now. Sarah, Emma, and me at her high school graduation. Emma was heading to study engineering, her tuition secured not by desperation, but by honest work at a company that valued what I brought to the table. Wesley Kane pled guilty to embezzlement and was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Phoenix Industrial was broken up and sold in pieces. The warehouse where I'd nearly died was demolished, replaced by a parking lot. But that wasn't the real ending. The real ending was simpler. I kept the note Richard had written me in the hospital. Opportunities fade faster than pain. Don't wait too long. I had it framed and hung in my office, not as a reminder of what I'd survived, but as a promise of what was still possible. Sometimes life needs a hard fall to show you've been in the wrong place too long. Phoenix Industrial taught me that loyalty without integrity is just enabling corruption. Stone Logistics gave me something Phoenix never could, the chance to build something that mattered. Wesley thought he was firing dead weight. Instead, he handed his biggest competitor, the one person who understood his company's weaknesses better than anyone. The irony wasn't lost on me. But the best part wasn't the revenge or the vindication. It was the phone call I received last week from a young supply chain analyst at another company. She'd read about the Phoenix case and wanted advice about reporting safety violations at her workplace. It's scary, she said. But after what you did, I know it's possible to stand up for what's right. That's when I knew the story was complete. Not because I'd gotten justice, but because someone else had found the courage to seek it. The warehouse accident that nearly killed me ended up saving more lives than just my own. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you opens the door to the best thing waiting for you. You just have to be willing to walk through it. Sometimes the people who fire you do you the biggest favor of your life. They force you to stop settling for less than you deserve. Real loyalty isn't about staying where you're comfortable. It's about having the courage to leave when your values are compromised.